I'm Thad Brown, that's Carl Jones. This is Let's Talk Ball. Every week we break down the Bills game from a film and X&O point of view. And this week, talking about a surprising loss for the Bills to the New York Jets. Sure, the Bills were banged up on defense, but where I want to start in this game is not when the Jets had the ball, it's when the Bills had the ball and what happened there, Carl. And to me, the number one thing that stands out from this game is the Jets defense is legitimately really good. And look, they were good before this game, but the question with them was, are they good, or are they just playing a litany of backup quarterbacks and bad offenses? Because they really had done that prior to the Bills game. The Bills had injuries in this game. They were not on offense outside of Spencer Brown. So this was the mostly healthy Bills offense, and the Jets just about shut them down after a couple early drives. I mean, in the fourth quarter of this game, Josh Allen was on tilt. You know, it wasn't just the interceptions. It was poor decisions, missing throws that he normally hits, leaving the pocket when he didn't have to. He was definitely not comfortable doing almost anything in the second half. And what the Jets look like on defense, to me, is what the Bills look like on a regular basis. They get to the quarterback with the front four and only the front four. Sent two blitzes in this entire game, 2 5-man, 1 zone blitz, whatever. And the other thing that really stood out, and I want to hear your take as the former college cornerback, their zone defense looked so good and so cohesive. They didn't, Dan Orlovsky did a breakdown of one play as he was pointing out, and his phrasing was, they're not taking the cheese. They're not going after where you want to stretch out the zone. They're staying where they're supposed to be, covering the guy they're supposed to cover. And, I might quibble with some of Ken Dorsey's route combinations. It didn't seem like there was enough variance. Either the route combinations were either all between the hashes or all outside the hashes, which made it kind of easy to play zone against that. But the other thing about the Jets is they don't have to play coverage for too long because the front four gets home all the time. And even when they do have to play coverage for a while, with Sauce and DJ Reed and even Michael Carter, they've got the horses back there to stay with whatever you want to do. So the scheme is really good. The talent's really good. To me, this is not a one-game thing. Maybe they played one of their better games, but this, to me, is a group that's going to be nasty for a while. And the final point I make on this is when I say their secondary looks like the Bills, this is a Bills secondary that's been together for like 5 years largely. Trey White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde early in the year. The Jets threw this secondary together in the offseason. These guys are almost all brand new, and they look like the Bills, 5 years down the road. Now, the Bills were good earlier than 5 years, but I was incredibly impressed by the Jets defense.
I think the one thing that I always take for granted as a defensive player on offense, one player messes his assignment, okay, whatever, like you can still have a successful play.
Yes.
But on the defensive side of the ball, it doesn't work like that. And Dan Orlovsky on that one play that you alluded to, they were all on a string together. They all it took was one player to come out of his assignment and bite that cheese, Josh Allen's hitting right behind them. And the Jets seem so mature for them to be such a young team, especially in the back end. They knew their assignments. They knew their 111s, especially Sauce, DJ Reed, Carter, as you alluded. Even Mosley with some of his drops, it deterred Josh Allen a ton. This Jets defense, coming in like we talked about, they play backup quarterbacks, and I think Skylar Thompson from you're like, oh, okay,
Brett Rippon.
Yeah, you're like, all right,
Legends.
whatever. Yeah, like, okay, this is it's the Jets. That's why we're giving them all this love, right? No, but like this team, the Mean Green defense, whatever you want to call them, they had Josh Allen, just looking like rookie and sophomore year Josh Allen again with the footwork not being consistent, looking around, leaving the pocket. I know the one throw that Dan Orlovsky is pointing to on that play, Josh Allen just misses the throw. Like that was just a bad throw. Now, granted, he should have hit the check down or the under.
Crosser,
yeah, but that was just a terrible throw. His feet weren't up under him, and it was just looking like he was sped up, never felt comfortable. And you gotta give that's all of the Jets defense that's all the Jets defense because he hasn't looked like that all year. I mean, maybe at times, here and there drives, but on a consistent basis, especially the last 30 minutes of the game, the Jets defense took it right to him.
The other thing about the Jets defense that was eye-opening to me was how deep the defensive line was. At some point, like when I'm going through the All-22 and the other team, I don't always figure out what every player is. 95 had made a play there, whatever. But when someone starts making play after play, I'm like, who is this guy, I looked up every different defensive lineman on the Jets roster at one point to be like, who is this guy? Because every different one, Huff and Rankins and Solomon Thomas, the former 3rd overall pick, John Franklin Myers, who's really good, got a long contract. They had everybody made plays. I mean, the guy who was the rusher who hurt Josh Allen and had the fumble at the end is Bryce Huff, who might be like the seventh best defensive lineman. Nathan Shepard, who is probably the fourth best defensive tackle, had back-to-back reps where he tossed Roger Saffold around like a rag doll. So it's not just Quinnen Williams and Carl Lawson, the guys you hear about. It is top to bottom. This group has so much talent, and it didn't matter who was in. The Bills' offensive line looked overmatched.
No, they did, and because of that, Josh Allen, the turnovers again, they're starting to creep up, and it's not looking pretty at all. He's played 8 games so far this season. 7 of them he's had either a interception or a fumble. Now, granted, they recovered a lot of those.
A fumble, not necessarily a fumble loss.
No, exactly,
Yeah.
and because they recovered both of their fumbles against the Jets. But that's no bueno. At no level of football, I remember I can just hear Coach Babers just drilling it into everyone's head. Ball security is job security, yours and mine. Now, granted, Josh Allen gets paid a lot of money. His job security is fine.
Right.
But you get the gist of it, where takeaways are so detrimental to a football team because it cuts down on the possessions. This Bills offense is too explosive to just take possessions out of their hands. So whether it's the front 5, got to be more, be better up front to make Josh feel more comfortable, or just Josh playing better. Like, it's flat out, like, sometimes there's not a science to it. Sometimes just calm down, make your reads, because the 2 interceptions, you can try to X and O that all you want. I don't think anyone can really justify what those 2 plays were. I know after the game he just flat out said, I didn't see the guy. And then the Sauce interception,
he called it a brain fart. That's what it was.
Well, yeah, because Gabe Davis went outside release, and nonetheless, that made no sense. So Josh needs to come back down to earth and to his MVP type levels in terms of just good decision making. And I felt as if the Jets forced him to just sometimes to check it down a little bit more often. And Josh Allen has a cannon. He's trying to use his arm and hit all angles of the field. And, man, he resorted to some of those bad habits again, which was no bueno.
That last year, that was one thing that I think got better later in the year. When he started taking the checkdowns, to me it was the road game in Foxborough against the Patriots. That really opened up the rest of the offense to where you get the no-punt games, the perfect game in the playoffs. And he didn't do that as much. He's been doing it mostly this year, but not as much against the Jets. One other point on offense that you and I want to talk about, Stephon Diggs today during his press conference, just talking generically about him as a player, said, yeah, I always get the other team's the best guy, which I kind of laughed at myself because this week and last week, he has not been on the other team's best guy. The Bills, we talked about it last week with Jair Alexander and the Packers, and with this game, Sauce Gardner. I didn't count every single snap, but I tried to notice when it was Diggs and Gardner and man, and they just didn't play man every time either. I counted 2 snaps the whole game. First play of the game, first play of the second half. First play of the game, Diggs dusted Sauce. Second play, time they got together, first play of the second half, Sauce hammered him on a motion, and Diggs basically quit on the route.
Same as that concept, actually.
Yeah. So the point is here, the Bills are using Diggs to try and get him away, at least the last 2 weeks, from the other team's top corner, which is great strategy. I mean, you got a guy who's really good, put him on somebody who's not really good, and let the guy eat. And for 3 of the 4 halves, it has worked. The thing is, though, the Bills, and I think those of us in the media have had a discussion a lot coming out of this game, where has the secondary receiver production been? Well, Carl, when you're playing your lesser guys against their best guy, what's the result going to be?
No bueno. Not
exactly.
Good.
Yeah. So, I don't want to sit here and say that this is the only reason Gabe Davis has not been producing, or McKenzie or Knox, but it is a factor, correct?
Oh, 100%. Just taking it back to, when I played defensive back, and you have game plans, right? You scout the other team's best players and the receiving court, and every single time you see them, you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do against their best player, and there's some things where I'm going to have to pray against them. Just talk to the man above me. And like with Diggs, for example, he's great at a lot of things. Just sometimes you just better hope that Josh Allen misses, right?
Right.
But the others, as I like to call them, I don't know if you have that same panic or fear with the other guys. And not to say they don't bring anything
on the Bills, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis is a great vertical option. Dawson Knox, is a good, reliable red zone option. And, Zay McKenzie is great with some of the gadget stuff, and he's very quick. But on a down-in, consistent basis, I don't know if the other guys strike fear in you. And that's why I think Nyheim Hines, down the stretch, may be, a valuable asset for them. And as James Cook gets more, implemented into the game plan and playbook and stuff of that nature. Because right now, it's the Josh Allen and Diggs show, because we know the running game is never going to be, spectacular.
Carry the offense type thing.
So if those two aren't clicking, God bless you, because they can't move the ball consistently.
And that's what the second half of this game was. All right, let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Bills on defense, Jets on offense. And I think the first place to start is what the heck happened on that last drive where the Jets ran it 8 times in a row, went from their 4 to the Bills' 2 with 1 pass play in there. And, most time fans will see something like that and what happened, what went wrong? and I always say this over and over, anytime you see anything big happen in the NFL, big upset, big route, big drive, it's usually more than one thing. And I think that's what happened here. To me, this was a missed tackle on the first play. Then the Jets ran a good concept where they just, hey, sometimes you win. Then the Bills, I thought, overplayed that concept on the third play, and the Jets were able to hit a cutback on it. Then after that, they ran a different concept, but Jaquan Johnson missed a tackle. And now all of a sudden you've got 4 plays where the Jets go 50 yards and 4 runs. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't one, problem. And I think, to be honest, that's good news for the Bills because there isn't some fatal flaw with this defense that the Jets exposed. They just hit a bunch of different things all at once where, okay, if we don't do these things that we're not generally doing anyway, we would have been fine.
100%. This kind of takes me back to when I was in college, when Coach will always tell us, hey, the film is never as great as what you say it is, and it's also never as bad as what you think it is either. And I think this is a great example of the latter. The Bills' run defense, albeit still needs to be, sewn up a little bit, it wasn't nearly as bad as what it looked like on that last drive. As you alluded to, sometimes you're just one play away. And what makes the run game so unique and what I enjoy so much about it, even though I was in the secondary, it's not complex. It's just my will against yours and who's going to be the person who gets off a block, make a tackle, disrupt something like that. All it takes on any of those plays is a defensive tackle to get off his block, take him 2 yards in the backfield, and blow everything up. All it takes is a linebacker to blow something up. And that's just one play, just one player. And that's what's so unique and fun about the run game is pass game, all the beautiful artistic routes and oh my gosh, and I love it. I'm a fan of it. But the run game isn't like that. The run game is nitty gritty. I'm trying to move a man from point A to point B, and sometimes my will is better than yours. And obviously the schematics come into it. I thought the Jets did a great job of pulling people, motioning. I think Bernard, his head was on a swivel a couple times.
We'll get to that in a minute too.
Where the motion just had him very confused. And so I'm going to give the Jets, OC a credit for some of that stuff. But most of the time in the run game, especially with the Patriots game last year, you just got to get off a block. And that's why there's no panic when you watch the film a second time. There's sometimes if it's Harrison Phillips, if Ed Oliver gets off a block, Von Miller gets off a block, Tremaine Edmonds, you just get off a block and make a play. All that run D issues is a moot point. Yeah,
I think that they did a good job. I'm going to say good job. An okay job before that last drive was really just the one terrible drive there. Let's talk about the 2 guys who had to sub in this game. One starting for the first time on defense, the other one getting a second or third start. You brought him up, Terrell Bernard. I thought his game was very nondescript, which isn't terrible. I didn't think he was bad. I didn't think he was good. I think for the most part he did his job. I counted a couple plays where it looked like he was wildly out of position. But for a rookie in his first ever game, I'm not overly mad about that. What was your take on 43 and the way he played in this one?
I thought that a couple times, the Jets took advantage of him being a younger guy with some of the motion. And the second touchdown, for example, I don't know if you noticed where the Jets sent a motion to the other side of the field. And I don't know who's wrong. It could have been Edmonds or Bernard. But it's never good 2-on-1. And this is not basketball, guys. So Edmonds and Bernard both went with the motion. And it was a walk-in, easy touchdown for
Michael Carter. Now, is that the run or the throw to James Robinson?
The screen.
Okay, yeah.
Well, both plays, to be honest.
Was it? I thought. Now I got to look at it again. I thought it was Bernard going with Dane Jackson on a coverage to the corner.
Yes.
And So
what I'm saying, someone was wrong in that scenario, and I don't know if that happens with Milano.
Yeah, I agree. It looked like to me. I thought that was man coverage where Dane has his guy and Tremaine is sitting in the middle by himself. So if the corners are all in man and your linebacker is sitting in the middle, like either as a robber in a zone, why is your weak side linebacker running double teaming some random guy?
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought of that play. I'm like, the motion, the Jets offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur did a great job because, all of that is just window dressing. I'm just trying to – there's not so many offensive plays. There's 30, and we just get to it in different ways. And the Jets ran a normal screen. They just got into it in a different, cute way, and it ended up costing the Bills an easy touchdown.
Yeah, Bernard, it looked like it. We don't know, but the guess is with the DBs in man and Edmonds sitting in his zone, why is Bernard chasing a guy in man? Because he ended up chasing himself out of the play. But that being said, again, there were plays there. There was one screen where he kind of slithered between 2 offensive tackles and, didn't make the tackle, but stopped the play enough for someone else to make a tackle. So there were plays there. He wasn't bad. Jaquan Johnson is a different story. I think people at home who watched the game saw him miss a couple tackles, and that stuff was glaring on tape. He also had the face mask early in the game. This is your realm with the defensive back area. Is there like something that stands out to you why he's taking bad angles, why he's missing those tackles, or why he ended up having that kind of game?
It takes me back to when I first got to college, and coach tells you there's two types of players on the football field. There's the freaks, and then there's everyone else. There's like 5% of freaks when it comes to football, okay?
Right.
The Bills really don't have, even their the safeties, starting safeties aren't that. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, but what they make up for it is superb instincts and intellect, and they just know the plays and know the playbook. Jaquan Johnson falls in the latter. He's not a physical freak. He's just a smaller safety. He's not like a 4-3 guy or anything. So he can't make up for his mental mistakes with his physical ability. And unfortunately, he lost a lot of it contained because he just wasn't on his P's and Q's in terms of his assignment. Mm-hmm. Because of that, you get a face mask because you're out leveraged, you lose contain. Someone like Derwin James, who was a freak, yeah, he can make up for the fact that he didn't have his assignment, on the exact second because he's a freak.
Yeah.
Well, no one else in the NFL can do that, right?
Right.
And we've gotten spoiled with Poyer and Hyde, who aren't 4'3", 40-inch vertical guys, but they're always in the right place at the right time. The plays that Jaquan Johnson missed weren't some super athletic play where he only, only Micah Hyde can make that play. Like, no, I expect my backup safety to make those plays. He just has to, regardless if he's a playbook guy or not, he has to be more confident in what he's doing out there and just shoot, make your shot. Because like we talked about with the run game, at the end of the day, can you do it or can you not? I've seen Jaquan Johnson tackle, played against him in Miami. Tackling is not an issue with him. You just got to get there and make the play, my guy, and just be more confident in doing so.
In the passing game defensively, I thought the Jets did a nice job of making things simple for Zach Wilson. A lot of quick reads, a lot of quick throws. It was disappointing because one of the big advantages you thought the Bills would have would be their D-line against the Jets' O-line and Wilson by extension. And they really didn't get to exert it too much. Von Miller had the big strip sack, which was huge. But for the most part, the ball was out so fast. I will say that the corners, all of them, had a rough day, at least against Garrett Wilson. Kyer Elam got beat on the Denzel Mims play late. I know Elam had a bit of an injury issue, so that might have played a factor. But it didn't, again, it's not like the Jets rolled up 400 passing yards, but it didn't seem like the corners had a super day, although, again, I thought scheme was more to do with that than them themselves.
Yeah, this timely plays that the Jets made that just cost the Bills. I know Kyer Elam had the bum ankle at the end, but he committed a cardinal sin in terms of on third down, inside like 2 minutes in the red zone, a man should never cross your face. Never. No bueno. We used to take laps for that in practice. It's just never supposed to happen. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that his injury didn't play a factor into that, but he made the crucial mistake in that. Dane Jackson gave up a couple plays where I thought it wasn't accustomed to seeing the Dane Jackson play. Now, granted, Garrett Wilson showed everyone on Sunday that Garrett Wilson has a bright future in this league. But, yeah, I don't think either corner or even Benford didn't make any pop or splash plays, played up to their, I think, potential on Sunday.
So we talked a lot about things we didn't like in this game. Bills only lost by 3. It wasn't like they lost 40-0.
The sky is not falling.
Exactly. Anything that stood out either side of the ball positively for you in this game? A player that maybe, even a player that you expect to play well, or maybe one that, was under the radar a little bit?
It was like 1 or 2 plays, but I am encouraged by James Cook. He's running harder, which is hilarious because earlier in the season, that was the knock on him. Like,
yes,
you just push him right over. Now, he only had like 4 carries, and it wasn't for like some substantial amount of yards. But I was encouraged to see him with his contact balance and not falling at the first sign of contact. That was encouraging to see. And then also on the little out route that he ran in man coverage to get that first down, I thought it was encouraging to know that, all right, when Josh Allen does go 5 out, he can rely on Cook as a safe outlet. So that was encouraging to see on the offensive side for sure.
Damar Hamlin continues to play well at safety, not Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde level. And although I thought a lot of the plays that he made in this game were kind of scripted, they were what appeared to be called run blitzes, he reacts and gets downhill in a hurry. And we've talked about his tackling. I might sit here and tell you it's a little bit risk-reward, but there's a lot more reward than risk plays with him so far. So I think, the Bills may have a guy who they can go to. Let's say Poyer or Hyde, don't come back next year. I think you could, at this point, roll in the next season with Damar Hamlin, and you're not dying out there. It's going to be a while before he plays at an all-pro level, but he's been pretty solid. I thought Ed Oliver made some plays. I thought A.J. Epinesa had a couple of plays, which, for him is an improvement. He just has been so invisible this year. So there was a little bit of encouragement on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, y'all saw it at home. It was Josh Allen and Diggs, and there really wasn't anyone else that, I mean, Deion Dawkins had a rough day with Carl Lawson. Quinton Williams is going to tear everybody up. That's how it goes. But there really wasn't much positive to talk about on the offensive side other than the two guys who were real obvious.
Dan Orlovsky tweeted earlier today, Josh Allen accounts for 23 of the Bills' 25 touchdowns this year. That is by far the biggest disparity when it comes to quarterback to any other team in the NFL. I know you guys don't want to hear it, running the ball, this and that. I'm not asking the Bills to look like the San Francisco 49ers running game. But when Josh's fastball isn't a 102, can we have a reliable curveball that can get guys out, whether it's screen games, other stuff of that nature? And who knows, if he is forced to miss time, is Ken Dorsey going to be able to go in that bag and make the offense a little bit more variety and diverse and not as dependent on Josh Allen's A game?
Definitely some nerves. What Case Keenum might have to do, this weekend. Now, look, the Bills are still a really good team and a really good defense. This weekend's game, and we'll talk more about it next week, obviously, after we see it. I can see Kirk Cousins just having a terrible day in Buffalo and the Bills winning that way. But if it's Case Keenum, you talk about the run issues, and it's funny, you brought up the number of touchdowns. I was starting to think in my head, what are the other two where Josh Allen didn't score? I think they're both garbage time James Cook TDs, right? Where I know one of them off the top of my head is like a 30-yarder against the Pittsburgh game late. I think the other one was probably a Tennessee score late. So, these touchdowns haven't even been scored like when the game is still in doubt. A lot of talk. This is a 6-2 team. I think we might have made them sound 2-6 today. They're still really good, but they had problems in this game. With a talented Jets defense and an offense that I think the offense was outcoached, not outplayed when the Jets had the ball as much. All right. Thanks for listening to Carl and myself. We do Let's Talk Ball every Wednesday night, posted on RochesterFirst.com in the evening. You can look at it all weekend long. Please click on something else here at RochesterFirst.com.